It's the nightmare every parent has. You're a mother, alone with your infant son as the sun sets on a summer evening. You think you're safe in your own car, changing his diaper, when a stranger attacks you from behind. The next thing you know, you're waking up on hard pavement with a throbbing head, a foggy mind, and your baby is gone. This is the horrifying story Rebecca Haro told police on August 14th, 2025. It was a story about a brazen, terrifying abduction that should have set off a statewide Amber Alert, getting thousands of people to look for a kidnapper and a missing child. But that never happened. As investigators in Yucaipa, California, started looking closer at what went down that evening, they realized the mother's story was the only lead they had. And as her story began to fall apart, they started to wonder if the real kidnapper was ever in that parking lot to begin with. The 911 call hit the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department at 7:47 p.m. A frantic mother was on the line, reporting that her 7-month-old son, Emmanuel Haro, had just been kidnapped from the parking lot of a Big Five sporting goods. Her story was shocking. She explained that after taking her older son to football practice at a park, she'd stopped at the store to buy him a mouthguard. Realizing baby Emmanuel needed a new diaper, she lay him down in the back of her white Chevy Silverado to change him. And that's when, she said, the unthinkable happened. She heard someone say, "Hola," and then, black. She was hit from behind, knocked out cold, and when she came to, her baby was gone. The story painted a terrifying picture of a random, violent attack. But as the first crucial hours of the investigation ticked by, one question started to hang in the air, a question that would change everything. Why wasn't there an Amber Alert? Before we get into the nuts and bolts of the investigation, let's remember who this is really all about. Emmanuel Haro. Just 7 months old, his family described him as a happy, healthy baby boy. He was about 24 inches tall, weighed 21 pounds, and had a full head of brown hair and big brown eyes. His parents pointed out one unique detail. He was cross-eyed, a little feature that made him their Emmanuel. When he vanished, he was wearing a little black Nike onesie. He was the youngest of 6 kids, a baby brother whose disappearance ripped a hole in a big, busy family. In the days that followed, his parents, Rebecca and Jake Haro, stood in front of news cameras, their faces just etched with pain as they begged for him to be brought home. Jake, with a breaking voice, spoke directly to the person who supposedly took his son. "Please just give him back to us. We'll forgive you. We won't bother you. We just want our baby boy." Rebecca, with tears streaming down her face, pleaded with the public, "If you know anything, please come forward or take him to the cops. Please come and bring my son back. I'm begging you." Their pleas felt raw and real. For a community just hearing about this tragedy, it was absolutely heartbreaking. A baby was gone, and his family was falling apart. Right after that 7:47 p.m. call, the police response was huge and immediate. The San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department swarmed the Big Five parking lot on Yucaipa Boulevard, a place that's usually buzzing with shoppers. They taped off the scene around Rebecca Haro's white Chevy Silverado and started searching everywhere. Officers fanned out, checking trash cans, digging through the dense bushes around the property, and talking to employees from nearby stores, just hoping someone saw something. The search ramped up quickly. Helicopters with infrared cameras sliced through the dark sky, their spotlights scanning the ground for any sign of the baby. Elite K-9 units were brought in from both San Bernardino and Riverside counties, trying to pick up a scent. The dogs sniffed all around the mother's truck, but their search led nowhere. They couldn't find a single track leading away from the area. That was the first big head-scratcher. In a kidnapping, where someone physically carries a baby away from a car, you'd expect the dogs to find a scent trail. But here, nothing. It was like Emmanuel just vanished. Every available resource was being used, all based on the idea that a violent kidnapper was on the run with a baby. But as the hours dragged on with zero leads, the silence became deafening. The public's phones never buzzed. No Amber Alert was ever sent. The Amber Alert system is an incredibly powerful tool, but it doesn't get used lightly. There are strict rules. To issue an alert, law enforcement has to have a reasonable belief that an abduction has actually occurred and that the child is in immediate serious danger. On top of that, they need a good enough description of the child, the suspect, or the suspect's car to tell the public what to look for. In Emmanuel's case, they had a description of the baby, but that's where the solid info ended. Rebecca Haro, the only witness, couldn't describe her attacker at all. She said she was hit from behind and never saw a thing. No face, no clothes, not even a general build. And she didn't see a car. Without that key information, an Amber Alert was a non-starter. What would they even tell people to look for? This alone started raising red flags. How does a violent kidnapping happen in a store parking lot during business hours without a single witness or any descriptive details? The story was terrifying, but it was a story with no proof beyond what one person was saying. And when detectives from the sheriff's Specialized Investigations Division sat down with Rebecca, they found that even her story wasn't holding together. A couple of days into the case, the police released a bombshell statement. It said that during interviews, Rebecca was confronted with inconsistencies in her initial statement and declined to continue with the interview. That was the moment everything changed. The victim and only witness in a kidnapping had just stopped talking to the police right when they started poking holes in her story. The whole narrative of a random attack was crumbling, and a much darker picture was starting to take its place. As the investigation started shifting from some unknown kidnapper to the family itself, another disturbing piece of the puzzle surfaced, one that made the whole situation even more complicated. It was about Emmanuel's father, Jake Haro. While he was in front of cameras playing the part of a devastated dad begging for his son back, public records told a very different story. It turned out that Jake Haro had a prior conviction for willful child cruelty. According to one report, he was found guilty of that charge in 2023, just 2 years before Emmanuel disappeared. The specific details of that case aren't public, but the conviction itself was a huge deal for investigators. It showed a history that no police department could possibly ignore when a child from the very same family goes missing under bizarre circumstances. It immediately raised questions about what kind of environment Emmanuel was living in. This wasn't a family with a perfect record getting blindsided by a random act of violence. This was a family that had been on law enforcement's radar before, over child safety. Jake Haro told reporters that his family doesn't have enemies, and that he couldn't imagine anyone wanting to hurt their baby. But with his own history of child cruelty out in the open, investigators had to wonder if the real danger to Emmanuel didn't come from a stranger in a parking lot, but from someone much, much closer. With the mother's story full of holes and the father's past raising alarms, the official story of a kidnapping was completely falling apart. But that left the big questions. If it wasn't an abduction, then what happened? And where was the evidence? Well, the most powerful evidence was the lack of evidence. There was no physical proof of an attack. Sure, Rebecca Haro appeared on TV with a black eye, which seems to support her story. But investigators look for more than one injury. Where was the sign of a struggle around the truck? Where were the defensive wounds you'd expect from a fight? Was there any DNA from an attacker left at the scene? Police haven't said they found anything like that. Then there was the lack of witnesses. Yucaipa Boulevard is a busy street. A Big Five, even on a Thursday evening, isn't some deserted wasteland. The idea that a woman could be knocked unconscious and a baby taken without a single person noticing anything, no speeding car, no one running off with an infant, is really hard to believe. Police searched the area for witnesses, but no one came forward to back up the story. Maybe the biggest hit to the story came from an independent group that had rushed in to help. The Uvalde Foundation for Kids, a national group that helps find missing children, had jumped into action, even offering a reward. But just a few days later, they made a shocking announcement. They were pulling all of their support and taking back the reward. The founder, Daniel Chapin, said it publicly. We cannot, in good conscience, utilize our team and resources when so much is missing in this case. The foundation pointed to the inconsistencies in the mother's story, her refusal to talk to the police, and what they called a lack of response from the family. This was a massive blow. An organization that exists solely to find missing kids was basically saying they didn't believe the story they were being told. With every new detail, the case of Emmanuel Haro looks less like a kidnapping mystery and more like a puzzle filled with dark questions. The whole case is built on Rebecca Haro's story, a story that police have officially called inconsistent. So, the biggest question is, what were those inconsistencies? What did she tell the police that just didn't add up? Did her timeline keep changing? Did the details of the so-called attack shift? The public might never know exactly what was said in that interview room, but the fact that she shut it down says a lot. And that forces us to ask, if there was no kidnapper, what really happened that night? Police have said they can't rule out foul play, which is often code for we think a crime was committed, just not the one that was reported. And that pushes us toward the most heartbreaking possibility, that something happened to Emmanuel and the kidnapping story was invented to cover it up. If that's what happened, what could it have been? An accident that led to a panicked cover-up, or something far worse? And what about Jake Haro's prior conviction for child cruelty? Was it a mistake from his past that has nothing to do with this, or was it part of a pattern that ended in the most tragic way possible? These are the questions that now hang over this case, a cloud of suspicion that has completely replaced the initial panic. The community of Yucaipa, which started out offering prayers and support, is now just confused and frustrated, waiting for answers that might never arrive. The hunt for a villain has turned into an unsettling look at the family of the missing child. Right now, the investigation into the disappearance of 7-month-old Emmanuel Haro is still active and open. He is officially a missing person. His face, with those big brown eyes, is still all over the internet, a silent reminder of the baby at the center of this incredibly disturbing case. The San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department hasn't named any suspects, and both Rebecca and Jake Haro are presumed innocent until proven otherwise. Still, the facts are hard to ignore. A mother told a story about a violent kidnapping that police found inconsistent. A father has a history of child cruelty, and a national child advocacy group walked away from the case because they didn't believe the story. What started as every parent's worst nightmare has twisted into a mystery where the lines between victim and suspect are terrifyingly blurry. All we know for sure is that a little boy is gone, and the people who were supposed to keep him safe are the very ones whose stories don't seem to add up. The investigation goes on, and a family, a community, and now all of you are left waiting for the truth. What do you think happened in that parking lot on August 14th? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, but please be respectful, as this is still an active investigation. If you have any information, no matter how small you think it is, about where Emmanuel Haro might be, please contact the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Specialized Investigations Division at 909-890-4904. You can also leave an anonymous tip with the We Tip hotline at 1-878-C-RIME. Thanks for listening. Raising awareness can make a difference, and for Emmanuel Haro, a difference is desperately needed. Thank you for watching this heartbreaking story. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Secrets in the Shadows, and hit the bell so you never miss an update on cases the world shouldn't forget. Leave a comment below with your thoughts, but please keep it respectful, as this is still an open investigation. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next video.